Hey guys and gals, Nary here from Drake Wing Game, and it's 70 miles toward the Gaming Drag. Today I'm coming back at you with a Let's Play episode of A Fall from Grace. Yeah, let's go ahead and jump right back in, shall we? Alarm chain, you were up, and let's go. Of course, I understand. The Coyote smiled. It feels like these jobs are getting easier to do as time goes on. Victor patted him on the shoulder. Brilliant, lad. Practice makes perfect. And will feel even easier as time goes on. The conversation came to an end, the group maintaining their steady pace, waiting for the distant light of the campfire to come into view. Oh boy. You know something? Cedric lazily turned his head to his left to get a good view of the fox. The two friends were lying down in their tent after having tidied their belongings and emptied the sacks containing the evening's loot. Both stolen coats had been handed over to Ridley, who had accepted them enthusiastically, much as Victor had anticipated. Cedric had excused himself soon after, struggling to keep his eyes open following what had revealed itself to be a very exhausting day. Now he was lying with his arms and legs stretched out, the familiar sinking sensation of oncoming slumber overpowering his tired muscles. Just a month ago, I never would have imagined this is where I'd be. Here, with you, with the others, away from home at long last. If someone had told me, I would have laughed in their face and called them a liar. Cedric wasn't quite sure where the fox was going with this, so he decided to wait before giving a response. What I'm trying to say is, I know I could be a negative person. My life is shaping this way. But there are events in my past I've fought to leave behind, and that I wish didn't define me as an individual. But what has happened to us has shown me how unpredictable life can be. It's given me some hope I didn't know I was still capable of feeling. After such a long time, living feels good again. The Coyote smiled faintly, slurring his words with more than a hint of drowsiness. There's always a way out, a way forward. That's what I've learned since being reunited with you. He wrapped his right hand around Victor's. Sorry for rambling. It's just nice to have someone I can say all this to. Someone who I know will understand. No need to apologize. I've always been trying to ask you something, but I haven't found the right moment. Now's as good a time as any. The fox took a deep breath. We've kissed, we've slept together and shared so much already, yet I still haven't actually asked you. Will you be my partner, Cedric? The Coyote's eyes grew wide following a slightly delayed reaction, snapping him out of his drowsiness. What? He almost expected to wake up and discover this is all but a dream. Much like most fairy stories of the time. Romantically, I mean. Sorry, I should have said fiancé. But that implies we'd be getting married. Cedric chuckled at realizing that ever-confident Victor was now the flustered one in this scenario. He interrupted the fox's stuttering as his own giggling got louder until he could no longer contain it, bursting out into a wild laugh. This was it. It was actually happening. Everything Coyote had been dreaming of was coming true. Victor eyed him in panic, clueless as to why Cedric was acting in such a way. Such an adorable couple. Is everything all right? The Coyote nodded as he did his best to compose himself again. Victor, we've been close ever since I can remember. He pauses as he attempted to choose his words as carefully as he could manage. It's almost a fraternal bond I'd have a lot of trouble explaining to most people. Yeah, I understand. You'd rather it stayed that way. I won't hold it against you. Cedric raised his voice as he noticed the fox was getting sidetracked yet again. My answer is yes. I will be your partner. He leant forward, slipping an arm around the back of Victor's head and kissing him gently on the lips. He pulled back a few inches from the fox once he felt something wet his cheek, only to realize it was a tear. Victor's eyes were damp, his hair all matted, his fur uneven, yet he was smiling. And to be Cedric, he couldn't have been more perfect. The Coyote had finally stopped questioning the new twists fate had kept presenting him with, excitedly accepting this proposal along with the imminent new role in his life. It was an uncertain future he was willing to dive into. A future together with the man he loved most. I love you. I love you too. There was almost a ring of inevitability to those words the moment they escaped his mouth. Now, let's get a good night's sleep. I'm utterly exhausted. Sunlight colored the plain walls of the servants' quarters, all windows having been left open due to the beautiful summer weather outside. Emma, one of the older housemaids, was quietly scrubbing some dirty rags over a bucket of soapy water, humming an old ballad tune to herself. She heard some very familiar footsteps on the wooden floor, loudly approaching at a running pace. Hanging the cloth by the window with a couple pegs, she lifted her head to greet the 14-year-old she she had already guessed was responsible for the noise. "Good afternoon, dear." The boy finally appeared in the corridor, coming to a halt outside the housemaid's room. He was wearing a short, bright red jacket, coupled with a pair of yellow breeches and shiny hunting boots, a black helmet with straps and a whip in his hands. "Afternoon, Emma. Have you seen Victor at all?" "Why, you look like a proper fine gentleman today. Have you been out and about?" Cedric nodded, still catching his breath. "Yes, I've been hunting with my father." "Ah, of course. You told me, didn't you? Silly me. It's been nice having the place to myself, to be honest with you. Vic's in his room, if I'm not mistaken." "Cedric, is that you?" The fox had obviously heard the two and rushed out of his room to join Cedric. "What ho, you rascal! I was about to have a swim in the lake. Would you care to join me?" I'll race you to the willow tree." Emma raised her voice as the two skirted off. "Remember, you need to help your father carry in the food supplies after 6 o'clock, Victor," the fox replied from a distance. "I won't forget." The feeling of cool water on his fur was all Cedric could have wished for after a long day out. He and Victor swam about beneath the friendly willow's shade, splashing each other playfully as they went. After some time, Victor dived into the water without re-emerging a couple of seconds later. Cedric inevitably began to panic, moving toward the spot where he'd seen him disappear. Suddenly, he felt a tug at his legs. He lost his balance and fell backwards, yelping. Victor finally emerged, laughing and sputtering as he caught his breath. "Gotcha!" "Shut up!" Cedric replied with mock outrage at being outwitted by his friend. "Serves you right for disappearing without a trace this morning." "My father forced me to join him and his friends. I didn't have time to tell you about it." "It's alright, I'm just joking. How was your first hunt, by the way?" "To be honest, extremely dull. And most of it is just everyone moving around on horseback waiting for something to happen." "It's probably exciting if you're a rich person with nothing whatsoever to do." "I guess so." The two stepped out of the lake, shaking themselves all over to dry their fur in the fresh air. The bundle of clothes Cedric had left on the ground caught the fox's eye. "Those garments suited you. I've never seen you look like a real noble before." "They'd give anyone the appearance of a gentleman. You should try them on." Victor hesitated, his friend picking up his socks and yellow breeches and handing them to him. "Come on, I'm curious now. We're both a very similar size." Cedric smiled as the fox slid them on easily. "One day, when half this property is yours, this will be your regular attire, Sir Victor." "Ha, I wouldn't count on it." The coyote handed him the hunting boots, Victor donning them without some effort. Not without some effort. Okay. And lastly, the jacket. Cedric took a step back as the fox struck up a pose, imitating the figures he'd observed in the painting hung around the estate. "Wow, I was right." The coyote began to feel an emotion he couldn't quite explain at the sight of his friend looking so handsome. Victor spoke up again, walking in his friend's direction. "Actually, I've changed my mind. I can get used to this." Victor bent down, picking up the whip Cedric had been carrying along with his riding helmet. "And what devious activities do you get up to with this, do tell?" "It's for the horses, you half-wit." A devious smile crossed the fox's face as he approached his friend Cedric, growing more embarrassed than ever. "Is it?" He darted away as Victor playfully chased him beneath the old garden trees. "Wait there, you fool! I want to go out and get some drawing paper. Don't you want a dignified portrait?" The coyote almost fell over as his father suddenly appeared before him. Victor disappeared behind one of the trees, hiding as rapidly as he could. What in God's name is going on here, Cedric? Might I ask why you're running about the garden stark naked?" "I'm not naked, I do not want to hear any of your excuses. Go collect your clothes and make your way to the drawing room. As you might recall, Mr. Farley is ill, thus indisposed to teaching. Dr. Phillips is waiting for you to join him for his algebra lesson." Cedric lowered his head, afraid to meet his father's piercing, icy gaze. "Yes, father." The elder coyote walked away in the stable's direction. "You'll be going hunting with me again soon. You did reasonably well this morning." "Thank you." "But if I see that servant boy wearing your clothes again, I'm caning both of you, you understand?" I said, have I made myself clear? "You'll never be worth anything until you learn not to mingle with those beneath you. They are leeches, ready to suck you dry the moment your presence comes in handy." "Perhaps he was already abandoned you for another young lad." That sort cannot be trusted, after all, not even with feelings of the heart. They will desert you the moment you're no longer useful, as will that young fox if you give him too much notice. Either that, or he'll drag you to hell alongside him.
Cedric! Ced, wake up!
Cedric and Victor's tent, followed by the surrounding campsite, came into view as the coyote opened his eyes, adjusting to the morning light. His father's words still rung in the back of his mind, like the fateful toll of a ghostly bell.
What? Who?
Ridley was standing a few feet away, twirling a pocket knife in his left hand with one foot on the makeshift bed the two had been sharing. He sure had a nerve at all times. Cedric turned to his left. No trace of the fox. In fact, Victor's side of the bed appeared to have just been made.
We didn't want to leave without you.
Leave? Where are you going?
Don't you remember, or didn't Victor tell you? Scratch that. He obviously forgot to tell you. He's been too bothered letting us all know how in love with each other you are.
The sun bear let out a boyish giggle. Cedric blinked.
He what? Blake and I are supposed to be robbing a carriage up on Plowman's Hill today. I asked Victor if you two wanted to join us. You know, it's always helpful to have a bigger team just in case. And Dion told me how well you did yesterday evening, so I came up with a plan. Could you just give me 5 minutes, Ridley?
The other bandit seemed to finally realize Cedric might need a moment to wake up and gather his thoughts. He took a few steps back, exiting the tent.
Oh, and please ask Victor to come and talk to me. Of course. Sorry for the rough wake-up call.
Cedric sat up and washed his face using the porcelain bowl and jug he was sharing with Victor. He threw on a vest and donned a new pair of breeches Ridley had left at the foot of the bed for him. As he was combing his hair, Victor walked back in.
What is it, darling? So, what's this about telling the whole world we're dating?
I thought you'd be fine with it.
And what's this other talk about a heist with Ridley and Blake?
I wanted to wake you earlier, but you were fast asleep. I didn't... He left his sentence unfinished, pausing to choose his words more carefully. I'm sorry, I should have asked you about both these things. Victor's face grew flushed with shame, and Cedric couldn't help but think just how adorable his partner looked like this. The coyote's expression finally grew more relaxed at the sight. He extended his right hand toward Victor.
Thank you for apologizing, love. Now let's let bygones be bygones.
They shook hands, Cedric leaning in to give the fox a quick kiss of reassurance.
You can tell the others I'd love to join you all. I just need to finish getting dressed. I'll only be a minute.
Take your time. Oh, speaking of getting dressed, could you pop by Ridley's tent as soon as you're done? He told me he needed to have a chat with you.
Cedric sniggered at a small realization. My mood definitely scared him off.
The fox returned the banter as he stepped outside again. I wouldn't be surprised. 'Twas absolutely frightful, my dear. Cedric shot Victor a playful glare. Yes, that's the look that scares them off. Cedric went to grab something soft to throw at the fox, but he had already darted away, chuckling to himself as his footsteps grew fainter. Once Cedric had combed his hair as best he could manage without a proper mirror, he donned his jacket and his boots and slipped a couple of small knives into a pouch in his right pocket. He made his way across the camp, heading for the bear's lodgings. As he stepped inside, he realized he'd never actually set foot in this particular tent. It was crammed with all sorts of objects, clothes, and fine jewelry shared the space along with a couple of candlesticks, mostly missing any candles, and a few books that had been left scattered on the ground. Alright, y'all, I'm actually going to pause it right there. Thank y'all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell. I love you all, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Bye-bye!